July 1st, 1916. The Somme. The explosion erupts behind them. Black smoke, debris raining down. Private James Hargreaves, 32, single father from Manchester, reaches down from the sandbag wall. Below him, trapped in the crater, a German nurse, bleeding, hand stretched up toward his. She's clutching a compass. Enemy armband visible on her sleeve. He has seconds before the next shell hits. Their hands meet. He pulls. She screams in German. He doesn't let go. Drags her over the sandbags into British lines. The MPs see everything. Arrest him for fraternizing with the enemy. 2 months later, marriage certificate filed in London. The compass never leaves his pocket. What happened between that reach and that wedding? What did she whisper when their hands touched that made him risk everything? One sentence bought his silence and changed 2 lives forever. Manchester, June 1916. James Hargreaves stands in his kitchen watching his oldest daughter, Mary, 7 years old, pack his kit bag. His wife died in childbirth 2 years ago. He's been raising 3 children alone ever since, working the factory floor, double shifts when he can get them. The Somme offensive just got announced. The Army's offering soldiers pay, double if you volunteer for front-wave assault. Mary asks why he's leaving. To end it faster so I come home faster, he tells her. It's a lie, but it's the kind fathers tell. He ships to France after 2 weeks of training. In his breast pocket, a photo of his 3 children, faces pressed together, Mary holding the baby. On the transport ship, a London interpreter teaches him basic German phrases. Standard protocol, know enough to take prisoners. June 28th, he arrives at the Somme staging area. 60,000 British troops preparing for dawn assault. James volunteers for the front wave. Double pay. His kids need it more than he needs safety. Spring 1916, somewhere near the German lines. Greta Mueller, 28, Red Cross nurse from Hamburg, works a field hospital that moves every few weeks. Before the war, she was engaged to Thomas Rothwell, a British medical officer she met in Berlin in 1913. The war broke them apart. She joined the German Medical Corps. He enlisted British. She still wears his compass. Engraved on the back, TR, forever. In June, she receives a letter through neutral Red Cross channels. Thomas is alive. Stationed somewhere near the Somme. She writes back. No response. June 30th, the hospital receives evacuation orders. British assault imminent. The other nurses pack. Greta refuses. She's not leaving without knowing if Thomas is out there. The head surgeon orders her to go. She stays anyway. That night, she hears artillery in the distance. The sound gets closer. By dawn, the shelling is constant. She's looking for Thomas in the chaos. She doesn't know he's already moving toward the same place she is. July 1st, 1916, 7:28 a.m. The artillery barrage lifts. Whistles blow. James Hargreaves goes over the top with the 8th Battalion Manchester Regiment. Within 200 yards, everything goes wrong. Barbed wire uncut. Machine guns shredding the lines. Men dropping everywhere. James dives into a shell crater to avoid the fire. He's not alone. A woman lies trapped under wire, bleeding from shrapnel, clutching a compass. She's wearing a German nurse armband. The enemy. 10 feet away, a British officer's body, fresh kill, same shell. The nurse sees the body, screams, goes silent. James checks the compass engraving, TR. He recognizes it from the officer's tags. Thomas Rothwell. James spoke to him once during training. Nice guy. Talked about a German girl he was going to find after the war. James looks at the nurse, looks at the compass, makes a split-second choice. Cuts her free, drags her back toward British lines. The compass falls in the mud. He picks it up, pockets it. 50 yards from the trench, MPs intercept them. Arrest both. July 2nd, 1916. British POW holding area behind the lines. Captain Edmund Shaw, MI5, questions James for 3 days straight. Suspected collaboration. The story doesn't add up. Why save a German nurse? Why speak German to her in the crater? James sticks to his version. She was wounded. I followed Geneva Convention protocol. Shaw doesn't buy it. Points out James volunteered for front wave assault, high-risk position. Maybe he was trying to defect. Maybe the nurse was his contact. Greta refuses to speak, won't say a word. But during questioning, she clutches James's hand. Shaw notices. That's not how strangers act. Shaw discovers the compass, recognizes the initials. Thomas Rothwell was Shaw's colleague, brilliant doctor, engaged to a German woman before the war. Shaw realizes he's looking at that woman. Now he's got a new theory. Greta fed intelligence to the Germans, got Thomas killed. James is either complicit or stupid. Shaw holds both for espionage investigation. 3 days turn into 2 weeks. James keeps repeating the same story. Greta keeps silent. Shaw knows they're hiding something. He just can't prove it. July 6th, 1916. James and Greta are held in separate tents. No contact. Shaw interviews everyone. James's Manchester neighbors, factory supervisors, the men from his battalion. Discovers James's wife died in childbirth. 3 children under 8. No family support. Needed the soldiers' pay. 0 motive for espionage. But that doesn't explain Greta's trust. July 12th, Shaw intercepts a letter Greta wrote to James. It says, "Say nothing about what I told you. They'll never understand." James receives it during questioning, reads it, burns it in front of Shaw. Shaw demands to know what she told him. James says nothing. Shaw threatens military prison. James finally speaks. She said Thomas loved England more than her. That's all. Shaw believes him. It fits. Thomas was loyal. Maybe Greta resented it. Maybe that's why she stayed behind. Shaw closes the espionage case on July 20th. No evidence of collaboration. But he still can't explain why Greta trusts a stranger more than her interrogators. Shaw doesn't know what James knows. In the crater, Greta whispered something else entirely, something that explains everything, and nothing Shaw would ever believe. July 21st, 1916. Shaw offers James a deal. Return to the front lines, never speak to Greta again, or take responsibility for her as a POW under his supervision. Marry her for legal status. If he marries her, she avoids internment camp. He gets compassionate discharge, wounded soldier protocol, even though he's not wounded. It's a technicality Shaw can push through. James asks why Shaw's offering this. Shaw's answer, Thomas would have wanted her safe. You pulled her out. You finish what he started. James requests 24 hours to decide. That night, he writes a letter to his daughter Mary. I might bring someone home. The next morning, he accepts. Shaw hands him the compass during the meeting. Thomas would have wanted you to have it. James stares at it. The needle still works, still points north. Shaw processes the paperwork. Marriage approved. Discharge approved. 2 weeks later, James and Greta take the train to London. Registry office. September 15th, 1916. Shaw witnesses. Greta speaks her first full sentence since capture. I'll earn this. James doesn't respond. They're both thinking about the crater, about what she really said that day, about the promise he made in 90 seconds. Here's what happened in the crater. July 1st, 1916. Greta, bleeding, tells James in German, Thomas came looking for me. I led him here. I killed him. She'd sent coordinates through Red Cross channels, trying to arrange a meeting. Germans intercepted the message, set an artillery trap. Thomas walked into it trying to find her. Greta saw him die. That's why she went silent. That's the guilt. James's response in the crater in broken German, then live, make it mean something. That sentence bought her survival, bought his silence. Shaw never knew this version, never knew James married her not for love, but for redemption. Hers and his. They're both carrying guilt. James lost his wife in childbirth, blamed himself for years. Greta got her fiancé killed trying to save their relationship. 2 people drowning in separate oceans. The marriage is a lifeboat neither of them asked for. On the train to Manchester, Greta asks James why he agreed to Shaw's deal. James says, "Because you needed saving. So did I." It's the truth. Not romantic, not noble. Just two broken people trying to survive the wreckage. The compass sits between them on the train seat. Neither touches it. They arrive in Manchester in late September. James's children meet Greta at the door. Mary, the oldest, is suspicious. The younger two are curious. Greta speaks halting English, teaches them German words for common objects. Tisch, Stuhl, Brot. The neighbors are hostile. "German in our streets," they mutter. James defends her, loses his factory job over it within a week. Takes work as a night watchman, less pay. Greta volunteers at the children's hospital, uses her nursing skills. Slowly wins over Mary by teaching her to read German. October arrives. James has nightmares about the crater, wakes up sweating, seeing Thomas's body, hearing the artillery. Greta sits with him, doesn't speak, just presence. November, Mary asks Greta, "Do you miss Germany?" Greta's answer, "I miss who I was before the war." James realizes something that night. Greta isn't adjusting to Manchester. She's hiding, just like him. They're both pretending to be people they're not anymore. The war took those versions, left something else behind. The compass stays on the kitchen table. James offers it to Greta one night. "Keep it. Thomas would want you to." She refuses. "You earned it. I didn't." Neither of them can hold the weight of what it represents, so it sits there, untouched. A monument to a dead man and a promise made in mud. November 1916. Shaw sends a letter to James. Thomas Rothwell's family wants to meet Greta. They know about the engagement. Shaw warns, they're wealthy, connected, could cause problems. James asks Greta if she wants to go. She refuses. "I took their son from them." James insists. "You didn't. The war did." December 1916. They travel to London, meet the Rothwell family in their Kensington townhouse. Thomas's mother, Margaret, is in her 60s, composed, grieving but dignified. She hands Greta an envelope. "Thomas wrote this before he shipped to France. He wanted you to have it if he didn't come home." Greta opens it, reads, stops breathing, hands it to James. The letter says, "If I don't come home, find James Hargreaves, 8th Manchester. He promised to watch for you. He'll keep you safe." James reads it twice, doesn't remember, then, slowly, it comes back. A conversation during training, late night, both men on watch duty. Thomas talked about a German nurse, Hamburg, engaged. James promised, the way soldiers do, not thinking it would matter. In the crater, James didn't recognize her until he saw the compass. Realized too late he'd already made the promise. Greta looks at him. "You knew?" James shakes his head. "Not until the compass. By then, Thomas was dead." They leave the Rothwell house in silence, the weight of it pressing down. James kept two promises that day, Thomas's and his own. Both required the same thing, survive and protect. December 1916. James confronts his own memory on the train back to Manchester. Thomas described Greta during training. German nurse, Hamburg, engaged. James promised as a passing kindness between soldiers. "If I see her, I'll watch out for her." Standard trench talk. Nobody expects to keep those promises. In the crater, James didn't recognize her until he saw the compass engraving. T.R. Thomas Rothwell. That's when it clicked. The promise he'd made, the woman he'd promised to protect, already bleeding out, already trapped. Greta asks why he never told her. James's answer, "Because you needed to be saved, not haunted." They sit in silence for the rest of the journey. Back in Manchester, life continues. James works nights. Greta volunteers at the hospital. Mary grows. The younger children forget there was ever a time before Greta. The war ends in 1918. James returns to factory work. Greta becomes a full British citizen. The neighbors stop muttering. Time does its work. By 1920, Mary is 11. She asks about the compass one night. James tells her the full story, how he met Greta, about Thomas, about the crater. Mary asks, "Do you love her?" James thinks before answering. "I didn't marry her for love, I married her for a promise. Love came after." It's the truth, not the romantic version, the real one. Mary picks up the compass, hands it to Greta. "This belongs to you." Greta finally accepts it. 20 years after the crater, finally ready to hold the weight. The children grow up calling Greta Mutti, German word for mother. She teaches them the language, teaches them her country's history, teaches them that people are more complicated than enemies and allies. James returns to factory work, but the war stays with him. Nightmares fade but never disappear. Greta sees it, sits with him on bad nights. They build a life that looks normal from the outside. Inside, they're both still in that crater, both still carrying Thomas, both still asking if they earned what they have. The compass stays on the mantelpiece, visible but untouched. A reminder of what started everything. 1940. James dies at 56. Heart attack. Quick. Greta at his side. At the funeral, she places the compass in his coffin. Mary asks why. Greta's answer, because he kept two promises with one choice. That compass was the proof. After the burial, Mary finds a letter James left for Greta, sealed, dated a week before he died. She brings it to Greta. Greta opens it, reads. One line. "I never regretted the crater. I regretted I couldn't save Thomas too." Greta folds the letter, puts it in her pocket, doesn't cry, just nods. She understands. They both carried the same guilt. Both wondered if saving one life was worth losing another. The answer was always the same. You do what you can with the 90 seconds you're given. The compass is buried with James, needle pointing north, forever. Years pass. Greta lives another 23 years after James dies, raises the children, watches them marry, watches them have children of their own. Mary becomes a teacher, teaches German, tells her students about her stepmother, the German nurse who married an English soldier. Tells them about the crater, about the compass, about promises kept in impossible circumstances. The story becomes family legend, gets told at Christmas dinners, gets passed down. In 1963, Greta dies at 75. Mary finds her diary. Most of it is routine, hospital shifts, recipes, notes about the children. But the last entry, dated the day before she died, says this. James saved my life twice, once in the crater, once every day after. The first time was courage, the second was choice. I never thanked him properly. I tried to earn it instead. I hope that was enough. Mary reads it at the funeral. The family cries. The compass is long buried, but the story lives. That's the thing about promises made in craters. They don't die with the people who made them. They echo. They become the proof that in the worst moments of human history, someone chose mercy over survival. Someone chose a stranger over safety. Someone kept a promise to a dead man because promises matter more than logic. James Hargreaves pulled Greta Mueller from that crater in 90 seconds. The marriage that followed lasted 24 years. The legend lasted longer. Because some marriages start with love, others start with a promise in the mud. Both can be true. Both can last. The crater was July 1st, 1916. The promise was 90 seconds. The life they built was everything after. That's the story nobody tells about the Battle of the Somme. But it's true, or true enough. The compass proved it. In 1974, Mary Hargreaves publishes a small book about her parents, The Promise in the Crater. Local Manchester press sells a few hundred copies. Most people don't care about one soldier and one nurse from a war 50 years gone. But the people who read it remember. They tell their children. The children tell theirs. The story spreads the way all good stories do, slowly, person to person, until it's part of the landscape. In 2016, a historian researching the Battle of the Somme finds Mary's book in a Manchester library, tracks down the family, Interviews Mary's daughter, now 60, asks if any of it is true. Mary's daughter says, "All of it. My grandmother kept every letter. My grandfather kept every promise." The historian asks about the compass. Mary's daughter says, "Buried with him. My grandmother insisted, said he earned it more than anyone." The historian writes an article, gets published in a small journal, title, "Love and Promises in No Man's Land: The Untold Story of James Hargreaves and Greta Mueller." Not many people read it, but the ones who do understand something essential. In war, the big stories get told, the battles, the generals, the casualty counts. But the small stories, the 90-second decisions, the promises kept, the lives saved in craters, those are the ones that show what people are actually made of. James Hargreaves died in 1940. Greta Mueller died in 1963. The compass is still buried with James in a Manchester cemetery. The needle still points north. And the promise? That never went anywhere. Some things you can't bury. Some things you can't kill. Promises made in craters are like that. They survive everything. Even the people who made them.